Hello Tech Accessibility Summits and welcome to my short session. My name is Mike Masey. I am a white male in my 30s. I have brown hair and a short beard with a little bit of salt and pepper grey speckled in there. I'm wearing a black long sleeve t-shirt and I'm speaking to you today from my home office. Today I'd like to share with you our story of how we are able to enact positive change for accessibility within our tech community. And in order to do that, I think it's best to start with a little bit of backstory as to the community I'm referring to, as well as what I mean by we. The community I'm referring to is that of Umbraco. For those of you who aren't aware, Umbraco is a content management system that is open source and has been around for over 10 years. In 2019, myself, along with a few other members of the Umbraco community, formed a team called the Umbraco Accessibility Team. Since then, our goal has been to make Umbraco, which is commonly referred to as the friendly CMS, even more friendly than it has been before, to everyone. There was one thing that all of us had noticed, and that was the actual editing experience of Umbraco was lacking slightly in the accessibility requirements that we would like to see. Thankfully, because Umbraco is open source, we actually had the ability to check the code, scan through it, run our own accessibility audits, and find out what needed to be done, and in doing so, start fixing them. Over the last 2 years, through a series of techniques from writing blog posts to engaging with the community and engaging with Umbraco themselves, we've really seen a drastic improvement with how accessible the content management system now is for people. As a little example of what we've been able to achieve in our short time so far, we've had over 195 accessibility-related pull requests merged into the core of the code. Umbraco themselves have created an Umbraco accessibility training course, and they've also built in accessibility automated testing for the next main version of the back-office system. This year, we were also able to put on our first Umbraco Accessibility Awareness Day event, which went down really well. But obviously, it's not as simple as saying we did a bit of work and we've been able to achieve this. So we don't have much time, so I'm not going to go too far into all the nitty-gritty into what we did. At a top level, I'd like to try and break it down into 3 areas, 3 E's I'm going to call them. And the first one is engage. One of the key things for accessibility is, to be honest, making people aware. Usually once people find out that there are web content accessibility guidelines, there's almost a set of rules that helps people understand what their website should be doing. Usually people actually get more engaged, more interested in what they should be doing. So this is the first step, engaging with the community, engaging with the company behind the technology. Obviously, not every company is open source, like Umbraco, but that doesn't mean that you can't reach out to them and even just ask the question, have you considered accessibility in your system? And if not, here's maybe a few reasons why you should. It's important when we engage with our communities and the companies that may be behind those communities to consider the different roles and responsibilities different people have within them. So, for example, if someone is at the business level where they are looking for bringing in more customers or bringing in more revenue, their thought process as to why something should be done is going to be very different to, say, a marketeers or a developers or a designers or anything like that. And how you speak about the topic of accessibility can really help to encourage them to give it the attention that it should have. Sometimes they may simply not be aware that it's a thing. Other times you can say, okay, as a business owner, I want to bring in more customers, but if my site isn't accessible, I may be losing a market share. In the side of Umbraco as a content management system, for me, the powerful thing was realizing, as a developer, I will build a website using Umbraco. It will be released to a client or a customer, and then after that, it's down to them to use that day to day for their jobs. And I realized people may rely on that technology for their jobs, for their day-to-day lives. And if we are building software for people that isn't usable depending on various needs, then people may not be able to get a job. So not only you're potentially creating more business and more revenue, you're also potentially creating jobs when you consider accessibility within the content management system, for example. It's how we think about the problem and engage with the conversation. With that as well, it's important to encourage people. It can be quite a daunting thing hearing about accessibility. When we first did our first ever accessibility audit in the Umbraco system, we found 151 initial problems. Now that is a quite scary big number, right? But for us it was actually encouraging because it meant that we could see the problem for what it was. We could divide it into the smaller sections, we could make it manageable and approach it in smaller chunks. We were able to encourage other members of our community to get involved, to help out. Some people have never had any experience with accessibility before, others had, and they could get together and help each other out. Another thing that can be really crucial is to understand that these problems won't get solved overnight, and to accept that and understand that that's fine. The key is to appreciate that whilst there may be problems now, if we know what they are, we can work together to improve them and make them better, even if it's a little bit at a time. I've got one more E for you, and that is to empathize. Because this I found was very important for people to not get too concerned. Yes, there are problems, and there may be many problems, but there's no blame, for example, for the reasons why there wasn't accessibility included to begin with. Right? Sometimes it's simply not, there's a knowledge gap there. Sometimes people don't have time, and as much as we'd all like to say it should be built by default, unfortunately, some companies that's not possible. So having a bit of empathy for those who built it, I think, is really important because we want to be kind to one another. And by doing so, we can help to encourage and we can help to engage the communities even more so. We can understand why accessibility is important for the people who rely on it, and we can also understand why it may not be there now, but how as a team, as a community, we can improve on it together, whether it's through an open source system and we're able to contribute ourselves, or whether it's from having conversations with a company who simply may not know about the subject and may need a little information, maybe they need some guidance. But without a kind conversation, we won't get anywhere better. So I haven't had much time, obviously. 10 minutes isn't a huge amount of time to go into the detail of it, but at the top level, I like to think these three areas, engage, encourage, and empathize, are what ultimately helped us to achieve the success that we have. Together, we've been able to make Umbraco an even friendlier and better content management system than it was before. Whether these are small incremental changes or one big change, improvement is still improvement, it's still progress, whether it's small or large. So if you're wanting to enact positive change within your tech communities, it starts with the engagement, and it continues with the encouragement and the empathy with those within the community and with the companies themselves. We're all people, we're all doing the best we can, right? So just begin that conversation and remember to be kind to each other. Thank you very much.